So, my name is Isabel Brouwer. I'm director of DutchBasecamp, which is a non-profit fully geared towards the international growth of startups. I'm super passionate about what I do, what we do at DutchBasecamp, because we are true believers of the impact that startups make, and we feel very driven to help them scale and grow across borders. Pascal, first of all, thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share a bit of what we've learned over the past couple of years about scaling internationally. I can't... This is not working.
That's not good.
No.
Let's see. Maybe select it.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I did that.
Okay. Well, okay, so I'll just move over here. No problem. So there's two things I can share in like 25 minutes with you. The first part's going to be about the common mistakes we see happening, because what we found when we started talking to, I think by now over 300 CEOs and founders about their internationalization, is that many made the same mistakes and they weren't really sharing this. I think we still lack a bit of a fuck-up sharing culture in the Netherlands. So we have bundled a couple of main common mistakes we see happening, and I want to share them here with you. And then next up, Pascal asked me to share some tools with you that you can use in order not to walk in those, fall in those mistakes that the others have made before you already. Just to check who here has a startup, who's a founder, CEO. Okay, cool. Anyone already internationally active? Okay, bunch. Yeah, you've grown GrowthHackers Talks itself, right?
Yeah.
I had my first startup when I was 16, and I grew passionately into the Belgian market, which is the worst thing you can ever go into. It's very, very hard to grow into the Belgian market, because even though it was very close, and I lived in Limburg, so it was super close to me, it's a very different culture. Anyhow, so let's talk about internationalization. Unfortunately, I cannot share here one recipe for internationalization because there really isn't. So there's not one way to go, so you need to figure it out yourself, which you always have to do when you build a startup or when you're working for a startup, right? I imagine a bunch of you are like into the marketing or the sales or growth hacking. At least you're growing a company, I assume. Which is the mother of all fuck-ups, so I hope I'm right here. But there's not one way to go. There is, however, a recipe for failure, and that's what I already mentioned just before. So I'm going to make this interactive. Again, if anyone gets uncomfortable right now, you can get up and leave. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I want to talk about the mistakes you can make when you're going international, or trying to capture those international markets. And the first one is actually scaling before you have, or your company has found product market fit here in the home market. So does anyone have any idea what the problem would be when you start scaling internationally before you have product market fit found already? Yeah.
You waste money.
Sorry?
You waste money.
You waste money. Why?
Because you're trying to grow a product that people don't necessarily want.
Yeah, because you don't know. Yeah, that's exactly right. And also you might make false assumptions about new markets too, right? Because you do that on a false product market fit, which you basically haven't found yet. Perfect. Spot on. So next one we see happening all too many times is scaling too soon. Any problem that might arise when you scale too soon? Anyone? The market isn't like the new market? Could be, but I'm looking more like into the company. What could happen there?
You can't deliver products.
You can't deliver.
Because
Yeah,
you can't
true.
deliver because maybe they ask for more than you can deliver. And
Yeah, true. Yeah, so what we often see happening here, you can't deliver, or even you lose grip in your home market. Right, so now you're going to another country, and oftentimes you have to put valuable resources there as well, and then you might lose your grip on your home market. So that's a bit risk when you're going too soon. Next one we come and see is scaling without a plan. Might seem very obvious, but if you don't have a plan, you don't know what's going wrong either. You don't know what actually is needed for your organization. When you go international, you really need a plan. It's important, and it's not even that hard. Second one, or first one is not having a focus. Main problem here. So I do intake with founders and they say, well, we're focusing currently on the EU, Asia and Australia, which is not a focus, it's a true story. They're doing really well now, by the way. But when you do this, what can happen? Come on, you can do it. There's 200 people. Someone should be. No one? Okay, so the main risk is that when you don't focus, you're spreading yourself thin. So you're capturing basically no market at all, or you stick to the early adopters only in every market where you're going to. You're never going to get to those early majority you want to reach into as well. So final one, I see you're getting uncomfortable now. Misunderstanding cultural differences. Well, this is obvious. Everybody has run into cultural differences and misunderstood someone somehow, right? I know this is an international crowd. So if you misunderstand it, and this can go wrong on multiple levels. In your sales, when you're hiring people, when you're having contracts with partners, or setting up contracts with partners, with resellers, with whoever. If you misunderstand cultural differences, this is really, really going to hinder your international growth for sure. Every CEO and founder I've talked to has run into these. So the good thing is, there is something you can do about it. But unfortunately, it's not what this guy thought. Who knows who this is?
Sander Snapcar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Victor van Tol. He's the founder and CEO of Snapcar, car sharing platform here in the Netherlands. They are active now in 4 countries, and he's learned quite the hard way with scaling. Because first he thought, I can just follow my gut feeling. And that's kind of the entrepreneurial mindset most people have. You know, you have a really good feeling about it and it really works well. And what he found is that when you go international, is this doesn't add up anymore. So you really need to become more data driven. And I'm hoping now that you're going to be really psyched because you're all growth hackers or really at least passionate about growth hacking. Otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here. So what we find is when you're going international, it's really important to become more data driven. So this leads me up to hopefully not giving you the feeling that you're actually having to climb this mountain as unprepared as you might have been, but to understand that when you prepare really well, when you make a plan to rise to that the top of that mountain, when you have a plan, when you have the right gear, when you have your team in place, you can actually make it to the top. If it's good weather, but there's always some things that you can't influence, right? So let's talk about some of those tools that can help you. And to say beforehand, we are working on putting this in a SaaS solution, but right now we're still MVPing our way into it. But you can get all these tools just by emailing me. My contact info will be at the end. So the first tool I'm going to talk about is the internationalization canvas. Is anyone familiar with the business model canvas? Yeah, with like an X-ray of your company, right? So there we have designed the internationalization canvas. Then I'm going to talk about an analysis tool to do market selection, and finally about a book, basically that helps you to navigate those different international business cultures in order to prevent those mistakes that can happen there. So the DutchBasecamp internationalization canvas. We made that build upon all those conversations we had with those founders and CEOs about their internationalization. It is structured, I understand you can't read this in the back, but again, you can have this from me. It is structured in 3 parts that basically are a bit of a reflection of the process you're going to go through when you scale internationally, because you're going to start with market selection, looking at the interesting markets, hence market opportunity. Next, you're going to make a go-to-market strategy, and finally look into your organization. What do you need to change within your organization to actually deploy that strategy? So for the first part, for market selection, we're going to dive into that a bit with the MABA analysis tool. I'm going to explain after this. But basically what I advise you to do here is to really look into your product market fit. For example, you could use the business model canvas for that, which is like an X-ray of your company. And what you want to do is like really look at the things that make you successful, your business successful here. So what have you found out during growth hacking, for example, that what makes your customer tick? And what you want to prevent here is that you stare yourselves blind on only market size, which is why we all want to go to the US, right? Because the market is huge. But there's a lot more you want to look into than just the size of a market. And that's important here. So then the next thing is you want to build a good go-to-market strategy. This is of course different per market, because you might have a reseller of your product here that is already active within the whole Europe, and you can just lift yourself with this reseller on accessing basically the market he's already active in. But if you want to go to the US, your reseller is not there, so you need to set up a new partnership. So for every market, basically you need a different go-to-market strategy, and also your value proposition might change. Anyone familiar with Blue Moon, the flowers? Yeah. So when they want to, so they do really well here. Everybody loves them. They do good here. But it's like a Dutch startup. It's tech. It's flowers. It's our national pride. We all are very familiar with having flowers here in our homes. When they went into France, they actually had to change their value proposition, which they found out during their validation process. Because the France, well, they don't really care about if anything is Dutch. Actually, they prefer it to be. Is there anyone French here? Good. Or afraid to raise their hand. French are very confrontational, I know. Anyhow, so they actually prefer it to be French. So they had to change their value proposition, and what they found there is that what they really liked was how it is very arty. And the artisan part of the flowers. So they put that way more in front in their whole strategy. And then finally, of course, you have to look into your organization, what needs to change there in order to make your go-to-market strategy look like. That's all I want to share here. I can't talk about this for hours, but I don't have that much time. So the next thing I want to talk about, and I'm assuming you like this, and I like this because I'm a data-driven geeky. This guy is Mark Willems. He actually introduced the MABA analysis tool to DutchBasecamp. The MABA analysis, which stands for Market Attractiveness, Business Attractiveness, is actually a McKinsey tool, which has been used for, I think, since the 80s or 90s. But Mark Willems, he said we can really use this also for internationalization. And by now we're like 3 years down the road. So we've been working with hundreds of startups using this tool, and it really works. So what you do is you define a skill yourself, and along that skill you're going to map your 5 most favorite countries you're thinking about scaling to. So Pascal, I imagine you have an idea about if you want to scale Growth Hacker Talks internationally. You're maybe thinking, well, Germany might be nice. What others? UK might be nice.
Yeah, London, Berlin are definitely on the map, yeah. But maybe also US. It's a big market.
It is. It's a huge market. True. So you always have some idea. And what we try to do with the MABA analysis is put a rationale behind it. So you design your own skill on every market you're thinking about. You're gonna put along that same skill. So that's really important. And this way you're gonna extinguish that gut feeling, and then really make it data-driven. So you score those markets, and then you're actually building your own international roadmap there. And it also shows you where you have many blind spots, because when you're actually scoring markets along a scale that you have defined, and you're like, I actually don't know this about the US or about UK, then you know what you don't know, and you know what you need to research more and validate. So it's in 2 ways it's very valuable. So what would it look like? You in the end you get a beautiful bubble chart in Google Sheets, and then you want to look for the markets that are on top left. I know this makes no sense because normally 100 is there, and would be on the top right, but this is what McKinsey did, so we're just following them there. Because otherwise someone who would be familiar was like, oh no, that's wrong, it should be the other way around. So you're gonna put look at markets that are on the top here. Well, it says here, right? Go for it. This is like really ideal. Anything that will be down here is really not interesting, because what Mark also said, look at him again, he's such a great guy. What Mark also said, he said, well, there's two things, and I'm going to make the comparison of me looking for a new or second wife. And so I'm looking to a place where there's many bars, or at least really good bars, which would be the market attractiveness. And then at the same time, I'm going to think about what's going to set me apart in that bar. Like, why are they going to choose me? Which is your business attractiveness, basically. So these are the two skills in the man's mind. Emily and my team said, you shouldn't say that, it's sexist, but well, there I went. The Google Sheets, this is what it looks like. It's really, yeah, I'll share it with you. You come up with 5 parameters for both business attractiveness and market attractiveness. You can dissect those from your product market fit and use the canvas for that. And then you build your skill, you rate them, you score them, and then you get the beautiful bubble chart. I'm really happy to share this with you. I built it in like 3 hours. So it's not like there's a huge IP or anything. And anyhow, we love to pay it forward. That's about the MABA analysis tool you can use. So this is a warning, especially for the people in the back, because everybody's like, parameters? Well, here's some example of parameters that are used by, in this case, health tech companies. We did a couple of masterclasses teaching all these tools for health tech companies, and the things they come up with, for example, is the hospital openness to innovation, because they had a very innovative tool for hospitals. But of course, this is really important, and they are active already in the Netherlands, where there's, for example, the Radboud Universiteit in Nijmegen, the medical facilities there, which are very open to innovation. And because they were the first line, then the other ones came, you know, it was really important for their success here that there was this hospital that was open for their innovation. And now they're going to other countries, which are oftentimes, we tend to forget how innovative we truly are here in the Netherlands, is that this is really important for them to look into. So every market they were looking in, they were trying to find out how open are they here for innovation. And attending big tech conferences, for example, or other conferences can be a place to find these things out. And then if you're going there with a whole team, you're going to say, okay, so today you're going to talk with only French people, and this is the question you're going to ask all the time to find out how is this working in France, for example. So this is how you can then deploy these kind of tools in reality to get the data in, right? You're still alive, that's good. So the final tool I want to talk about is the culture map. This is a really soft tool, but so super important. It will not only help you do international business, but also it will really help you if you're working in international teams, which, well, most of us are in general. The culture map is written by Aaron Meyer, and it helps you to prevent these kind of mistakes. I know most of you know this matrix about what we hear the UK, the British saying and what they're actually saying, which is a huge difference. The culture map written by Aaron Meyer, she's from India. Does anyone know this book? Have you? Cool. Are you fans? You had to read it because I told you to, right? Are you a fan?
I haven't read it.
You didn't read it? Oh, okay.
It's on my shelf though, it's on my list.
But seriously, I read this on the beach in Zanzibar. It's a really fun read, and it helps me every day. Because what she does, she maps every country in the world, every business country in the world on these 8 scales. I'm not going to dive into it, because again, this is like an hour conversation here. But it's always relative, so this yellow is the US and orange is the Netherlands. Just these first two, for example, first one is communicating. The US, the Americans, like the Dutch, are very direct. Even the Americans are more direct, meaning what we say is exactly what we mean. There's no reading in between the lines. You would imagine that also with negative feedback, they're very direct, which is the second skill, right? Like the Dutch are, we say it when we don't like it. Well, the US people are far, far to the right. So they're a lot more indirect with their negative feedback. And when you're doing international business, and you're going to the US and you say, hey, I'm Pascal van der Steen, you know, I have this great concept called GrowthHacker Talks. I think it's totally going to go like, oh, Pascal, this is amazing. Wow, I can't believe we totally like this. What might need some improvement is the kind of venue you use, but all in all is, you know, I'm just making an example because this venue is amazing. But, and then Pascal walks out this meeting and think, I made it. I completely sold GrowthHacker Talks now in the US, where actually what they meant to say was a Dutch person saying, it's never going to happen, you use the wrong venues. It's the same message, but in a different way. It's perfectly fine if you understand, but if you don't understand, it's going to take you a very long time to actually become internationally successful. Hence the reason you all, if you want to do international business or you're working in international teams, read this book. I don't get any money by this. Yeah, so these are the skills. So finally, to come back to where we started, common mistakes. Scaling before you have product market fit, just keep searching and don't spend your time across borders too much. You know, I know there's fun times there as well, but it's more important to find your product market fit or to at least be well along the way. Scaling too soon, check in with the internationalization canvas, the organization part, and realize what actually needs to happen in order to become internationally successful in your organization and find out whether you're there or not. Also, to build a plan, you can just use the canvas. It's free. It's our pay it forward. If you're lacking focus, if you're saying I'm focusing on the EU, Asia, and Australia, use like a MABA analysis or whatever to define your roadmap. Like I'm first going to go for this country, then this one, then that one, etc. Don't try to scale to multiple markets at once. It doesn't work out in general unless you have really, really, really deep pockets, which we generally don't have. And finally, in order to prevent the misunderstanding the cultural differences, just read the book and enjoy. I think that's it, what I want to share. Yeah, this is just what we do at DutchBasecamp. This is my advertisement, 5 seconds. And we all do this not for profit. And finally, my contact information to get all that. 2 last things I want to add. First of all, Victor van Tol, you just saw him from Snapcar. He's looking for like a really, really super, super talented growth hacker. So if you are that person or you know that person, please let him know through LinkedIn. You would really be happy with that. And then we're looking for someone like that as well. But then you should also be passionate about internationalization, which really matters to us. And finally, if you want to get the tools, just reach out. That's it.